Tailgate's finished. Woohoo! Well, it came out as good as I imagined, but better than I expected. Does that make sense? Reality doesn't always fit your imagination. So, I'll give you a bit of a panning shot. So the whole sides now flow in to the tailgate, so I hope the whole lot now makes a lot more sense. I was worried it was going to look a bit too much like a boy racer spoiler or something on the back, but I think it blends in quite well, and it's it suits the sides. Got that bit of a custom touch, and I'm pretty happy by the way it turned out. So other things that completed the tailgate was this Z piece that I spoke about. So that's been put in. Another thing I didn't touch on last time is the tailgate skin is one piece. So it starts here, comes up, goes around the top, comes down the back here, goes all the way to the bottom, comes forward, comes up, comes in, comes out. And all that was done by hand, no bender, just on the piece of channel and clamping down pieces of solid bar flat, and I had to actually get a few to get the right dimensions that basically filled that whole pocket. So when it was hammered up and over, it was done that way. So all bar the last fold was done with it hammering down over the channel, and then the very last one to make this final fold here. So this one and that one was already done. That was the first one. It brought it right over and then laid down flat like that. It's got a slight angle on it to make sure that the rain doesn't collect in the corner, and it stops it looking like just a piece of box tubing that's been whacked in there. I wanted the custom factory look. Does that term exist? It makes your head scratch if it's factory or not. Also replaced this, so still the original hitch cover, stainless steel ones under this, and what I did is, I was fortunate, I wrapped some steel, the same as this, over the top like a door skin, and then folded it around without any welding. It wasn't really needed. Oh, the corners were welded just to tidy them up. And it brought it out nice and flush. And this will be less obvious as when it gets painted, and even when the steel and the wax over the top discolours a little bit with time, and then they're all similar age. Also made my own hinges, so rather than going with the piano hinge, I ended up just going with something more simple. So this piece here is welded on the inside, goes all the way to the back here. There's some 5 or 6 mil plate, 6 mil plate. And I did the same for this side, and this becomes the end cap for the bottom of this as well. So it is fully welded all the way around. I made my own shouldered bolts because I couldn't get one in the M10 in the size I wanted. They go up to M8 fairly easily, but M10 I was struggling a little bit with in the same sort of head as what I've been using elsewhere in the vehicle. So I got a brass nut and screwed it onto the bolt, and then turned it down on my lathe until it was the diameter of the hole in here. So this bolt is then tapped into this. That's why it chose the thickness that it is. And the sleeve is the length of the 2 copper washers plus this piece. So when you do the bolt up, there's just a tiny bit of gap left between all these, so they rotate around, otherwise you'd undo the bolt every single time. So that's where I've done all that. I just think it looks nice and neat. I did take into account the height that the tailgate will be sitting at when it's horizontal. Now, if I was a tradesman and sliding stuff out every day, I would make sure that the tailgate was flush. That would mean I'd have to move this pivot point down the thickness of the tailgate. So it'd be right down here somewhere, and it made it very difficult to get this panel back in again because it actually hooks over the end of the floor, and it's yeah, pretty ugly looking too, because the inside of this have to come all the way down there. So yeah, bit of form one over function there. But I had to think, this is a camping truck for me. I'm not building it for anybody else. And I only load my camping gear in 2 or 3 times a year, in and out. So, and also it's basically flush. If I drop the tailgate, when it hinges down, it comes all the way down, and it just happens to touch on the tyre here. It looks really good. That was a bit of a fluke. So there's no metal on metal contact. It actually rests on the rubber tyre when it's completely vertical, and also made sure that these wouldn't contact the lights, so that could be done. So you can, if you're loading something heavy, it's much better that you can walk right up to the floor to load it in. It's a lot easier on, you know, old man's back that I've got. So that covers that thing. So the corners, like I showed, were the mandrel tubes, and I cut the inside of them out. So, well, here's a bit here. So that was the whole tube. I actually put a piece of sandpaper down here, slid the tube up and down to mark where the flat plane finished, top and bottom, and then cut around it, so you just had a nice rounded shell. And on this side, I actually tried, what I did is I welded just the shell in first, got it all perfectly aligned with the tailgate, then put the triangle piece in, planished all that, left the bottom open at this stage, and then put the bottom triangle in, and then the extension piece. On the opposite side, what I did, I thought I'd try to see if it's any quicker or a better result. I made the entire outer corner, and apart from the end cap, I made the whole thing. It was a lot easier and quicker to have this one big triangular piece in here and the little extension here that I needed, because I could form it over a stake and do all my planishing. But then I still had to weld all this all the way around, and then have to axe it from a further away. So I actually put a piece of timber down to the ground, so it supported the underside of this, and then I could lever through the hole and then push up on here to push up where it had shrunk. So that worked quite. I used some paintless dint tools that I've got to help that, but also just a big bar that came off a jackhammer, believe it or not, and I could shove it through the hole when it was still open, and then lever, because this was supported, I would lever that up and then move it all around until this was dead flush, and no dips. It's down to about 1/2 mil in as far as irregularities. I don't take it less than 1/2 mil. What's that, 1/32 or something like that? Not so good with my fractions. Because I don't want to do a file finish on this, I'm trying to keep everything as original thickness as possible, so I don't have to worry about fatigue cracks and that sort of thing. So that shows you all that part. Now for the catches. I didn't want to use the ones that are quite expensive that they sell for hidden latches, which have got a big ugly knob on here, and they were quite expensive for just a bit of rod with a threaded hole that you just slide back and forth. So these, I remember sitting in college and seeing them on the inserts of a door. So when you've got double doors inside the building, one door is often locked closed, and these are the catches that fit into this. These are fully stainless, so these come out. You push that lever across, and of course do it on the other side, and it withdraws the pin. There you go. So these are this 10 mil stainless steel. It's full stainless steel, and these for both pairs came out, including freight off eBay, from a local supplier, not China. I mean, they're probably from China, but I couldn't wait that long, and I wanted to rather deal with someone local. It was 23 Australian, which is about, what's that, about $16 American for a pair. and they're fully stainless steel. And I think they're just quite neat. So this is also the cables. So these are actually shoulder bolts that I could get in the M8, actually for a Honda CB50 or something to hold the fairing on, and I've just toned a bigger shoulder on it to get it over this lip here. And these pieces here are sold through a marine supply. These are all stainless for the wire that they run around to the balustrade wiring that they run around the, say, the deck of a yacht. So I've got a crimper on the way to do a better crimp than my little hand crimpers. I've got some hydraulic crimpers. And this has got stainless steel cable that before I put the second end on, I put some heat shrink over there, so when this is all painted later on, it won't scratch. Now you can see why I made this pocket in here as well, so the cable can sit in here. So you also notice that this one is sitting down, and this one side here is sitting back. And that way, when this comes up, they sit next to each other. So there's no worry about overlapping, and I didn't have to worry about putting it at a lower height and then pushing the cable out of the way as it came up. So I think that came out quite well. If I find that I want a flat floor more often, or to be able to get to drop the whole thing down, at the moment I can just take the two screws out, one each side, and the whole thing just folds down. I might get some quick release cables, which is basically like a keyhole where you can lift it up and then let the cable fall to the side, and then the whole thing swings down. So considering, you know, I only go camping, you know, probably 3 times a year, it's probably not worth it, and I'll just lift my fridge straight over the top of the tailgate and lay it down there. If it becomes a problem with my old age, then I can always change those cables for something else. So that gives you, up to date, and of course the cables and everything just disappear when this is closed, just like that. So it works out really well. This later, this is going to get trimmed back a little bit, and then we'll have either a seal attached, glued to there, or like the pinch rubber, like on a door, that you just slide that over the edge, and that'll be fully sealed. And then on the bottom of the tailgate, there'll be another seal tucked in here, so when it closes, the seal sits on there flush, and that should help keep the dust out, because don't forget, later on this is going to have a hard cover across the top, and I'll try and keep the dust out the best I can out of my camping gear. So that gets you all up to date with that, and I'm pretty pleased by the way it's turned out. So I suppose I've got a right to be chuffed, but I keep surprising myself, so I'm pretty happy about that. The tailgate that I put up on eBay drew a lot of interest, and a few people that said, "Oh, I forgot about it," and didn't bid. But I've just hung it up there now. I've had it for 12 years, and it's been hidden away, and so. At the moment it's just a bit of art, but if somebody wants it, you can contact me. It's 1,000 Australian, which in current exchange rate's about 720 US, because I spent an extra afternoon on welding a few cracks that it had in the bottom corners, which I had pictured in the ad. And what I also did is there was some dints along the bottom tube, and I got some 3/4 inch water pipe and threaded a joining collar on it, turned that down on my lathe, and it was fed all the way through there. So every time I came up to one of the dints, I would tap it in a little bit and then tap around the high sides of the dint to lift it up, and then go along to the next one, and so on and so forth, and got rid of all those dints. So it's completely rust free. I re-spot welded right along the seals there, because the factory ones had been sort of letting go over the time. I think at one time maybe the corner hinges had seized from not being used for such long, and then someone's forced it open and put a lot of strain on the skin. So that's been, because I've got my own spot weld, that's been re-spot welded on the factory spot welds, and one extra in between, I think it is, because it had hardly any of them, so no wonder it sprung open after all these years. Yeah, it's 70 years old, something like that. So I think it's off from 1948. So anyway, that gets you all up to date, and what am I now? 204 days of lockdown. I think we're going for the world record, which is 227 in Brazil. So I think we're in a couple of days we'll be in second worst lockdown city in the world. Not a record I really want to go, and at the moment this lockdown is supposed to end in September, but they're already talking that it might continue to November, so God only knows. Anyway, everyone stay healthy and keep mentally on top of it, which is the most important thing too. All right, see ya.